Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Alex from TCG Discussions. Just got some time, so I wanted to make a discussion video, deck profile of a very unique take, I would think, on Dark Brawly. Although the testing field wasn't very much, so I'm going to put some stock into it, some not, and I'll talk about it later when I make the profile. So look forward to that. But today I wanted to talk about something that Crossworld talked about a little bit. I've been actually meaning to talk about this for a while. He made a video about like the weakest color, which is black, and to some ways I agree with that, some ways I don't. But I definitely think that black is in a much different spot than every other deck in the meta, especially with Gogeta Xeno getting hit. And I want to focus on the defensive aspect because this is something that people haven't really talked about, so let's get into it. So let's start with the fall of Gogeta Xeno, right? So Gogeta Xeno's fall is a pretty big deal. One of the reasons it's a big deal is quite simply because Gogeta Xeno forced your opponent into a position, much like Dark Brawly did. The game is constantly on a clock with the big cards it plays. In Crossworld's video, he talks a little bit about how everything was efficiently played with 1 mana, but back when Dark Brawly was the top deck, I mean, you were playing 30Ks for free that had really strong effects. So now Dark Brawly is still in that position, and I think that it's in the position of Gogeta Xeno. I think Dark Brawly could actually be really good. But the thing is that we have to kind of figure it out, and I think that I mentioned this to Kyle's Chris. Shout outs to him. If he's there, leave a comment down below. I can't really talk. I just got over the 2-mile run, but anyway, this idea that you can play a really powerful card for 1 mana, right? Dark Brawly can do that, and the variant that I'm bringing to the channel has an extremely unique take that I think that could make Dark Brawly viable. And basically, the end game that I had against my opponent was beyond a blowout. It was so dang strong. So, talking about Gogeta Xeno, he just put a ton of pressure by playing a lot of big cards. It's pressure with, Marvelous Might, I think it is. It just broke down into 2 other cards, and you just kept putting pressure after pressure after pressure. And this is all for very strong value, right? Charismatic can hit that. You get those cards to the board, and Charismatic can pop 1. There's just a whole plethora and a whole host of things that just made it tough. So, sorry, I let the camera slide a little bit, but Black's main issue, and this is where I'm going to dive into it. Black's main issue is its defense, okay? And Bandai, if you end up watching this, please correct this, post-haste and immediately. The first thing that Black needs, and I mean it needs this, right? It needs this so that Black decks can have a competitive, viable chance defensively against other decks. It needs a counterplay that is unison-based, right? I don't care if it's as broken as God Sealing, and it just says, send the card to the warp instead of it being played, right? And then you can't activate counter play for the turn. Something like that. Because where Black is right now is in the worst defensive position of any meta it's ever been in. And the reason why it's so bad is because every other strong Black deck is a mid-range deck. Quite frankly, every other deck is better at playing every other color is better at playing mid-range than Black. It's just that simple. Blue's going to do it way stronger than anyone else because it's got energy manipulation. Red's going to do it while wiping your board with half the decks that are good right now, GT and U7. Green's going to do it while popping your cards. Literally, I mean, Cooler has a board wipe. It's got 2 charismatics. Cell's constantly popping cards, charismatic, so on, and draws a lot of cards. And so you basically, and then it has hand destruction on top of it. So you're basically playing the game. You're playing a game where your strategy is just not winning, right? If you have to play a mid-range deck and you're playing black and you sit down against any color other than black, you're losing. It's just that simple. The other problem is like the best counterplay for black, which is Dubura, costs 2 energy. And this leads me to my next point, is that black has no good floodgates. So Protector of the People is good. Sometimes. Sometimes it's good. Because right now, Protector of the People might be the weakest it's ever been. So we are in a very unison heavy format, which basically dictates that Protector is useless, right? All the unison cards are just going to dominate and kind of destroy us. Like honestly, it's just how that's going to go. Not to mention, like I said earlier, the only good black floodgate, Oceanus, is half terrible. It's only really good against one deck that's U7 because they don't want to deck themselves out. But you also contribute to the strategy faster, which is also a double-edged sword. And then there's the fact that it can get hit by other counterplays, which makes the blocker effect useless. So, yeah, it's just not good. Like, black defensively is just not good. And then, if it wasn't bad enough, every good negate that we have makes us pitch a card. It does. And every other free negate, besides like our blocker negates, which finally black got on par with, right? Didn't even have that for the longest. But Power Burst isn't good anymore. It's not. One, it would only be good if Kai was heavily played, and it's hard to play Kai heavily unless you're playing like Vijx, which I guess Vijx could be good. It's there's a build in that I've also been kind of tinkering around with and thinking about. But here's what you have to understand about any and everything that, like, Petrification, while being one of the strongest negates in the game, being an inherent -2 to your hand, on top of, like, a format where hand destruction is very prevalent, and all these other cards are, like, super strong, all these other colors are super strong, it's almost like, to what point? So, for example, let's say that you swing with, like, after U7 plays their Goku, and you petrify that one card, if the Goku was the card that attacked, and they still have 3 other battle cards on the board, you're screwed! You're screwed. Bulma, same thing. GT, same thing. Petrification doesn't hit enough. Right? It doesn't stop enough. And while it's good against, like, Sin Shenron, that's it. The buck stops literally there. And so black Power Burst, and here's the other thing about Power Burst. Power Burst's best value is when you take a life, because you +1. But, to what end? Right? Like, literally, to what end? You don't do... What are you grabbing? What do you grab? Nothing great. Nothing great. So, I don't know. I just really feel that, like, black is in a very bad defensive state position. So things I would do to correct this. The first thing I would do is give black a free unison counterplay card. It needs one. It needs to basically be God Sealing, right? That just says, pitch it to the graveyard, the card is warped instead of being played and can't activate counter for the turn. And if y'all think that is too broken, if y'all think that's not fair, black is the only color in the game that doesn't have this. That's the first point. The second one is it would be the only really good effect that I can think of. And before you say, like, well, blue's God Sealing doesn't send it to, like, the bottom of the deck or anything, that's not fair. Yeah, it also has Android 18 counterplay. And it has God Sealing, which are both broken. Both of them. And you can play both in the same turn. You can tap 1 for the Android, and then if it's bigger than 4, you can just use the God Sealing, and, like, boom, you're done. As for Frieza counterplay virtually turns into Zamasu half the time. So it's like, that card is broken, and it contributes to Cell Xeno plays. Dumb. And then to make it worse, yellow, which I guess has Prideful Transformation, which isn't that great, yellow still has, like, every other counterplay in the game. It's got Goku, it's got Giant Ball, it's got Crusher Ball, if you want to tech it. It's got so many other things. It's got Cooler, Swift Retaliation. It's got like so many other good tools that it almost doesn't matter. That counterplay is useless. That is how good yellow is at countering your opponent. And as for green, I already talked about it. Red's ridiculous right now. Baby, Jiren, Videl, Yamcha, all of it. All of it's stupid, man. Like, just minus 20k to 2 cards, minus 15 to 2 cards. And then with U7, it's like minus 30 to 1, 15 or minus 35 to 1, and then to another. It's ridiculous. So, Black needs that. Secondly, we need a floodgate that warps cards from hand. We need one. Now, this is one thing I like about SSG Trunks, but I don't want to have to play just Trunks. Black needs something for everybody. And it needs to say, if your opponent attacks for the turn, full stop. Period. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. This is going to be it for this one. It's going to be a pretty quick, short one, but yeah, I think that Black is in a horrible defensive state. And if Black got better defensively, we could see Black's return in the meta. But without it, I fear that we're playing a losing game most of the time, unless you're super strong with the deck that you're playing in Black. And you just know what you need to be doing. So yeah. Let me know what you guys think about this down below, and I will catch you guys next time. It's Alex from TCG Discussion signing off. Laters.